Sometimes it feels really hard to keep going. And today I want to talk about the people who keep going, who've kept going. Who are your heroes who have kept going through their journey? And when in your journey have you kept going? And why did you keep going? The people in today's show had every reason to put down the violin permanently. Injury, poverty, paralysis, the wrong zip code, a body that betrayed them, or a world that told them it wasn't for them. And they picked it up anyway, and they kept going. Because if you've ever thought it might be too late or too hard or too much, I want you to hear this. If we haven't met, I'm EP Archer, and I help committed adults improve their quality of life with music. And today's episode is a little bit different. There's no framework, there's no tips, just stories of people who have overcome. And I would love for you to think about your story and share it with us. You know, I never really learned technique until grad school. When I finally got to college and I was a violin music major, that's when I first learned about pronation and supination. And if you know about your bow holds, if you don't know this yet, by the way, amazing, amazing, amazing tip. But I learned about pronation and supination, and my teacher would joke around and say, you know, it's pronation, and he would rotate his wrist down to the floor, and then he would say, and Campbell's supination. He was the funny guy. I also cried many times during those lessons, and he would float a tissue over to me, and it would gently float down onto my violin, and I would wipe my tears and keep going. And there were many times that I wanted to quit, mostly because of the image I had about myself and how I didn't feel enough. And I'm sure there have been times when you haven't felt enough. We get these nuggets of technique and we're like, yes. And then we feel like, or can feel like, everyone else is so much farther ahead. But odds are there are other people that have faced challenges even more dire than yours, that have mechanics of their body or economic situations or growth opportunities that are even more hardcore than yours. And when I finally got to grad school, I had an overhaul of my technique with a wonderful professor at University of Colorado in Boulder, and it was all technique. And then I interned with the famous Margaret Berg, who's developed so many different fingerboard geography techniques, and I got an overhaul in both my right hand technique and my left hand technique. And I think that was key. But you know what, folks? I was already over 30. Okay. I had already performed professionally. I had already done recording sessions with Grammy Award winning artists, and I'd already played in front of 7,000 people. This was crazy, right? I had not learned any of that technique prior. And it's easy to feel like when you're in grad school over 30, you're not with all these young kids that are in their early 20s, that I was late. And I think the older that I get, the less late I feel. And I hope I can impart that to you. It is never too late. And making a method work for you when you're an adult is so much simpler than when you're a young person. We've already developed confidence in other areas of our life. We already have a story. We've already overcome. We have already gone through so much in our lives in other categories that makes us stronger for violin. And so I hope you'll think about your hero's journey in your life. What have you overcome? And what have you stuck by? And what has called you that you have answered? And if violin is part of that, I want to hear about it. And if you want violin to be a part of that, I want to hear it too. Let's make this episode interactive. Tell me in the comments, or find us on Facebook or Instagram, and let's have an amazing conversation and build each other up. So without further ado, here's some of the stories. You may know some of them you may not. Itzhak Perlman, of course, is one of the most famous and one of my favorites. He had polio at age 4, both legs paralyzed, walked on braces and crutches his entire life. I remember the first time I saw him perform, and he crutched out on stage and he sat in his chair, and I was like already crying. And the way he played that instrument, and this is like, he was already like older than I am now, let's just say, okay? We won't reveal ages, but I just was mesmerized, and tears were streaming down my face. And you know what he said to people that didn't take him seriously because of his disability? He said, the only challenge I had was to prove that people should only judge me by my music. 16 Grammys, Presidential Medal of Freedom, still performing in his late 70s, This man is a giant and an amazing inspiration. Black Violin is one of my favorite two artists. We've got Kev and Will. And Kev was born in Fort Lauderdale, and he was running with the wrong crowd. And you know what his mama did? Bless her. I love his mama. She put him in a Saturday violin class when he got in trouble. And he was like, I don't want to be the violinist in my neighborhood. But now he plays for thousands of people a night. He writes original music. He's fused a blend of classical music and hip hop that is absolutely electrifying with his partner, Will, who coincidentally wanted to play the saxophone, but he ended up in the wrong class, but he stuck with viola. He said, I had to live with it, but he got a full scholarship to Florida State. And their combination of singing, of violin, of viola, of making it speak to their culture and their generation, you cannot help but dance. And I have adult friends that go to those shows who don't listen to hip hop music or classical music, and they are drawn into this Black Violin sound. So if you haven't heard him before, definitely check him out. Amazing story. What about Augustin Hadelich? At 15, he was in a fire in Tuscany. His face, his torso, his bow arm were burned. He had 20 plus surgeries. Unable to touch the violin for over a year, and doctors said he's never going to play again. But that is not what he decided. He came back, went to Juilliard, won the Indianapolis Gold Medal, and won a Grammy. Now when he talks about it, it's a distant memory because he chose to stick with it. He chose to move past. I love the story of Regina Carter because she didn't come to this fame at a young age, and she didn't do it the traditional route. She's the first non-classical violinist ever to play Paganini's Il Canone, the most legendary violin in existence. She's a MacArthur Genius Grant, an NEA jazz master, but she didn't become known at all until 30 years old. She did it on her terms. She refused to compromise. She chose herself and she chose the violin over and over again. And her albums are compelling and original and beautiful. What about Ray Chen overcoming anxiety and the pressure of a prodigy box and burnout, and Midori moving to the US when she was only 11 years old and hospitalized at the height of her career, or Vanessa Mae, who had to distance herself from a controlling mother to regain her artistic identity. I mean, we hear the stories of people like Britney Spears, but this is happening in the violin world too. And Vanessa Mae did not let that get the better of her. Maxim Vengerov coming a serious shoulder injury. So you know what he did during that injury? He became a conductor, and he's one of the most prolific violinists of our time. Every single one of these people had a version of the moment where violin could have been over forever. Paralysis, fire, wrong neighborhood, wrong body, wrong timing, wrong everything, and every single one of them came back. Not because it was easy, because violin was inside of them. It was theirs. That's the thing about this instrument. It calls to you. It feels different than any other experience, and that makes it beautiful. That is what rewires our DNA and raises our vibration and allows us to connect to our deeper self. You know, Joseph Campbell describes the hero's journey. He talks about all of these different segments of challenge and of facing fear. And it's not just about being a hero. There isn't just that one moment, but there is a choice over and over again. Each day when you wake up, you have a choice. And each day when you're holding that instrument in your hand, you have a choice. I cannot wait to hear who your violin heroes are. Jean-Luc Ponty playing the jazz violin with Stanley Clarke and Chick Corea. Or is it someone in your hometown that you faithfully go to see? Somebody that's touring with a loop pedal, or someone in a local symphony orchestra? Who's your violin hero because of their journey? And who has your hero tone that you are striving for to build that confidence on your instrument? I want to hear all of it. Who is your hero, your shiro? Who's the player that made you pick up the instrument, or made you want to come back to it, or just made you feel like you couldn't put it down and it could be possible? Come tell me in the comments or join our free group. I can't wait to see you and hear from you. Let's follow the journey of our heroes. Because if you're over 30 and you play the violin and you're battling tone and you're not having any confidence to share what it is you're working on, we have a solution for you with Violin Unlocked, using the trademarked somatic resonance for violin method and led by an expert with 30 years of experience. Let me compact time for you. Let me eliminate this struggle and turn your challenges into victories. Just come and say hi in the group and let's have a quick conversation so I can help you today. I can't wait to meet you and see you on the other side of this journey. Let's make it happen.